welcome. Just give it another minute. Let me hit forward. So welcome to Coffee Talk with Christelle. Another coffee talk. Welcome to Thursday. It is way too hot. All right, let's here. There we go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Talk with Christelle, where we explore how everyday families can build wealth through real estate. Have you ever felt like you are competing against people who have unlimited money when you are trying to buy a home? You finally find a home you love, and then someone comes in with cash or multiple offers or buys the entire neighborhood before families even have a chance. So, something interesting has happened this week. The Senate passed the Road to Housing Act, which is why I have it right here. Road to Housing Act. And one of its goals is to make housing more accessible to everyday Americans. So let's talk about what that actually means. One part of this legislation really caught my attention. It aims to limit the influence of large institutional investors in the single-family housing market, while also encouraging communities to create more housing through zoning reform. Now, before anyone panics, this is not about stopping families like you and I from investing in real estate. It's about recognizing the difference between a family buying their first rental property or the next one and a billion-dollar investment company buying thousands of homes. And that is an important distinction. So, as many of you know, I am passionate about helping people build wealth through real estate. I'm not against investing. In fact, I believe real estate is one of the greatest tools families have to create long-term financial freedom. But there's a difference between helping one family buy an income-producing property or their next home and having large corporations compete against first-time buyers for the same home. So the goal behind this legislation is to help create a healthier housing market. It also encourages local governments to rethink zoning rules. Now, that may sound boring, right? Zoning rules, but it's actually one of the biggest reasons why we don't have enough homes. Many communities make it difficult to build starter homes, townhomes, duplexes, or even the ADU, which is accessory dwelling units, or other housing options that could actually give families more choices. So if communities can create more housing over time, that's one way we begin addressing affordability. Now, here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to put your dreams on hold waiting for Congress to solve the housing market, even when legislation is passed. Change takes time. Homes aren't built overnight. Communities still have to approve projects. Builders have to still build. Infrastructure still have to be completed. So the families who build wealth, usually they do not wait for the perfect market. They create a strategy based on today's opportunity in the present while preparing for tomorrow. So that's also exactly why I do what I do. Every week, I meet people who tell me, Christelle, we're waiting. I'm like, waiting for what? We're waiting for the rates. Okay, do you have a crystal ball? We're waiting for the prices. What, for a crash? Waiting for the inventory. What, for more homes to be available? How many homes are you looking to buy? Just one, right? Waiting for the perfect time. But over the last 28 years, I've learned something. The people who create wealth through real estate aren't necessarily the ones who buy the perfect time, at the perfect time. They're the ones who understand their options and make informed decisions when the opportunity is right for them. Sometimes that means buying your first home. Sometimes that means keeping your current home as a rental. Sometimes it means purchasing your first income producing property. Every situation is different. That's why strategy matters more than timing. So, I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you think limiting large institutional investors could help create more opportunities for everyday families? We'd love to hear your comments. So please go ahead and put your comments below. Do you think limiting large institutional investors could create more opportunities for everyday families? And of course, if you're wondering what strategies makes more sense for your situation, I'd love to have a conversation. Remember, you don't have to predict the market. You just need to understand your options. So, whether the legislation becomes law or not, one thing, I'm sorry, whether the legislation becomes law or not, one thing won't change. And what's that? The people who build wealth through real estate, they don't simply wait for the market to change. They learn to recognize opportunities that already exist. And that brings me to my next topic, which is a scenario of a client where things changed for her. So, I maybe need to add a little bit of honey in this coffee. Not that sweet, but let's get into the sweetness of my story. Because I love sharing stories because they remind us that real estate isn't just about having the perfect plan. Sometimes it's about knowing how to pivot when life doesn't go exactly as expected. I do want to make a little change here. So this week, or actually the last few weeks, I have been working with a client. She started to invest in real estate last year. She bought her first home many years ago. She found a property that many people probably would have walked away from. And the home needed work. There was plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, trees that needed to be removed. It wasn't a pretty house everyone dreams about, at least not at the naked eye when you first look at it. But it was an opportunity. Instead of waiting until she had years of savings sitting in the bank, she looked at what she already had. So she used a line of credit to access capital to purchase a property. Her original plan was simple. I'm going to renovate the property, use the capital that I have, get a loan because I have great credit. I'm able to get a loan to finance the difference. I'm going to renovate this property and then I'm going to sell it. And I'll do this again. That's the plan. But investing doesn't always follow our plans. The buyer who was interested wasn't ready to purchase. So now many people will see that as a failed investment. But she didn't. We pivoted. Instead of forcing the sale, she asked, what options do I have? So she ended up renting the property. And today the property rents for approximately, actually it's $3,000 a month. And her long-term financing is expected to be under $2,000 because she started with a short-term financing to buy, renovate with intention to sell. Those are higher interest rates. Those are short-term financing. But now she is doing a long-term financing and it's going to be under $2,000. So now we are refinancing in a permanent loan that allows her to pay off the line of credit that she originally used to buy the property. And there's the exciting part. Once that capital is available again, she's ready to look at the next opportunity. That's how many successful investors think. They're not just buying properties, they're building a repeatable process, even if though she had to pivot. Because now she has a property that she is able to pay off the capital she initially got from her primary residence. She has a monthly cash flow that's positive. So you want a repeatable process, but you got to start somewhere. So what was the biggest lesson from that conversation? It wasn't just accessing the line of credit. It was easy. It wasn't refinancing. It wasn't even the rental. It was something even bigger, much bigger. Because I've noticed something after nearly 30 years of helping family finance real estate. Most people focus on the property. Investors, they focus on the strategy. Most people ask, can I buy this house? Investors ask, what can this property do for me over the next 5 or 10 years? Most people wait until they believe everything is perfect. Investors, they learn how to adapt. In this story, plan A became plan B. And plan B may actually create even more wealth over the long term. That's why I believe financing is only one piece of the puzzle. So I'm only one piece of the puzzle for you, the financing. But the real value comes from understanding your options. Sometimes the opportunity isn't finding another property. Sometimes it's recognizing the opportunity you already have. Maybe it's equity in your current home. Maybe it's land that you've owned for years. It's another story I'm going to share with you in the future. Maybe it's a property you've outgrown. Maybe it's a conversation you haven't had yet. So those are the conversations I love having because every family's path is different. So that's really what today's coffee talk is all about. The news reminds us that leaders are looking for ways to improve housing affordability, and that's encouraging. But while policies take time, your financial future doesn't have to stay on hold. Whether you're buying your first home, thinking about keeping your current home as a rental, buying your first income producing property, or simply wondering if you're closer than you think. The first step isn't finding the perfect interest rate. The first step is creating the right strategy. That's what I help families do every single day. If today's conversation made you think differently about what's possible, I would love to hear from you. So leave a comment or give me a call. Okay, my number is not there. But what you can do is let's have a talk. You pick a time on my calendar. Let's have a chat. And in the comment right now, just tell me what resonates the most of what I share with you. And if you are wondering what opportunities might already exist in your situation, this is where you can schedule a call. You don't have to predict the market. You don't have to know every loan program. You simply need someone who can help you see the possibilities. I come from the world of possibilities. So thank you for joining me for another Coffee Talk with Christelle, and I'll see you next week. There was a piece of cream. Oof! That's why I do the live, because it's kind of makes it a bit juicier. What can happen right there?